let's come back to the issue of bombing of pipelines and so on. We showed on Wednesday the clip of Joe Biden talking about taking out the Nord Stream pipelines from, I think that was February or so. But things have moved on a little bit in the last couple of days.
They have. I just wanted to update that situation, and there are some clues as to kind of reiterate where our suspicions are on this. Again, nobody's taking credit for it. So if this was a terrorist attack of high value, certainly that any self-respecting terrorist group would want to leap forward and take credit for this one, an absolutely historic attack. But yet nobody has come forward as of yet. So Joseph Borrell saying this is a deliberate disruption of the EU energy infrastructure, and they will move with the harshest terms against whoever is responsible. So those are strong words from Brussels. If it's ever proven that maybe the U.S. or one of their NATO allies or a combination thereof are responsible, will they act against them in the harshest terms? I somehow doubt it. But so the reactions from the United States here, Donald Trump on Truth Social sort of made waves a little bit anyway. There's not much coverage of this in the U.S. media, but wow, what a statement! World War III. Anybody? He's making he's alluding to all the various admissions or tacit admissions by people like Sikorsky, Joe Biden, Victoria Nuland, etc. So Donald Trump said this could lead to World War III. So Trump's coming out alluding to the fact the U.S. might be responsible. He's sort of taking the Tucker Carlson line on this. There's a few others that are taking this position as well. So Donald Trump's right out in front of this, kind of pointing the finger of suspicion really at the Biden administration. You could call this electioneering, call it what you like. So the question is, where's Joe Biden? You'd think the president would have come out and sort of either condemned this attack or congratulated whoever did it. Obviously not. But Biden was asked this point blank, or he was challenged at the press conference in the Pacific Island, Hawaii press conference event. And he basically ducked the question, totally avoided it. So again, he opted instead to talk about the sham referendum and so forth. So Biden totally ducked it. And then Lloyd Austin took to the podium, and he actually commented on this. So he's the only U.S. official of any weight to comment on this. This is what Lloyd Austin said at this point. I think there's a lot of speculation. Until we get further information or we're able to do further analysis, we won't speculate on who may have been responsible. That's the defense secretary. Now, if this was a U.S. or U.S.-led operation, it would be classified to the highest level of classification for national security reasons, obviously. And if the U.S. wanted to keep it secret, it would be on a need-to-know basis. So clearly, Lloyd Austin, by basing on this comment, would have no knowledge of this operation. So the U.S. Defense Secretary is not on the need-to-know list if you believe that the U.S. Was behind it. I think that's quite plausible. Lloyd Austin is just regarded as a sort of lower level functionary in the U.S. power hierarchy. So what about the former Polish FM and MEP Radek Sikorski, the Mr. Applebaum, as it were? He's deleted his tweet, his infamous tweet, believe it or not. So isn't that interesting? This was up for about 48 hours, and maybe under pressure from the Biden administration or just the kind of embarrassment of it, or he was getting too much heat. He's basically deleted this tweet. So that's quite amazing from this Polish dignitary who's a fervent anti-Russian hawk, along with his wife. Of course, she's infamous in that regard. So back, the Washington Post came out immediately and attacked in hours of his. Notice the image they use. It has him palling around with Donald Trump. The U.S. has tried to name this as a Trump talking point, that the U.S. or somebody other than Russia might be responsible for it. It's literally, this issue is cut right down partisan lines, if you can believe that. Nobody's interested. in the nuance of it, in the facts. No one really wants to know anymore. It seems like this has just become a partisan thing. Here's what they're saying. This is the argument made by the Washington Post. There are many reasons to be skeptical of the notion of the United States conducting sabotage. High on that list is such an action would strain relations with European allies who would like to have access to that pipeline at some future date. Like that would stop the United States, anybody from engaging in a dastardly act such as this. Nonetheless, even currently foregoing Russian energy in solidarity with Ukraine. So that is kind of a not very plausible, disingenuous analysis here by the Washington Post. And I might add that there's absolutely pretty much zero coverage, and I'll tell you why shortly, why this has been buried in the United States at this particular time. But let's go back and look at the clues. Before this happened, there was a talking point with, you probably are aware of the Der Spiegel admission that the CIA had warned weeks previously, or back in August, in fact, that the Nord Stream pipelines could be targeted. So in the German press, here is Tagesspiegel, and they're saying that this is translating, by the way. Berlin is considering the possibility Ukraine or Ukrainian affiliated forces being behind the attack, but also floating the idea of a false flag by Russia to supposedly make Ukraine look bad, drive energy prices higher, and so forth. Not very credible, not very plausible. Nonetheless, let's write this off as propaganda, but let's revisit the Der Spiegel admission as well. So this is, again, German press, very close to the source of this incident. CIA warned German government against attack on Baltic pipelines. So people would look at this and think, well, that's interesting that the CIA had prior knowledge. More likely, this is CIA misdirection planted in what many would regard as one of the sort of vehicles of U.S. intelligence propaganda, which is Der Spiegel itself, but pretty much every other mainstream German media outlet pretty much works on that basis. So this is, I think, CIA misdirection. Was put out to create confusion because in the immediate aftermath of this incident, they're saying, well, it could be a Ukrainian special ops team or Ukrainian affiliated group, like whatever that means. I have no idea. But they said they could have done the deed underwater. So kind of everyone agrees this had to have been a state actor in terms of what the resources you need to conduct this type of operation. So this is all very well organized and planted misdirection and propaganda in the European press. So that does lead us to Maria Zakharova. She's basically called out what you talked about on Wednesday's program as well, that NATO was conducting exercises using deep sea equipment in the area of Nord Stream 1 and 2. And so she basically pointed this out. RT has got this on their website, of course. This will be written off as Russian disinformation just because it appears on RT. I thought I'd just throw that caveat in anyway, because it's obligatory caveat as well. But yeah, so she's talking about the Baltops drill that you guys covered on Wednesday, and that seems like a very likely and plausible scenario here. But let's just turn the clock back just slightly, and a lot of people may or may not have noticed that September 22nd, around that time, Germany moved to nationalize the Russian Gazprom subsidiary in Germany. So Gazprom Deutschland, their operation, they took it over, and so basically they said that they're secretly creating a holding to nationalize the Gazprom's Berlin-based unit. And the takeover is deemed by Berlin as a means to secure national gas supplies. That does not imply any compensation payments from the federal government for its Russian owners. That's a forced takeover of the Russian Gazprom infrastructure and operations in Germany. That went quietly under the radar back in September 22nd. And a lot of people didn't pick up on that. So we're just pointing to that because there were some interesting moves before this incident has happened. And again, around the same time, around September 24th, the head of Saxony, Michael Kretschmer, he said, "We are already witnessing that we can't do without Russian gas." He added that the sanctions imposed by Berlin over Russia's offensive against Ukraine have contributed to the shortage and situation. So not a lightweight political figure within Germany, however, seems to be at this moment a voice in the wilderness, buried under the whole Nord Stream story. So whether these things are going to be looked at or considered in the wider analysis, I probably doubt it at this point, but I think it's worth pointing out that coming into the winter, there is definitely pressure put on different parts of the German establishment to ease sanctions and to get Nord Stream restarted. Nord Stream 2, in fact, restarted as well, albeit on a limited basis in terms of the percentage of Russian gas that they would take from that pipeline. But that's basically what was going on in the run up to this. Now, I want to point out this isn't the only pipeline now that's in jeopardy. The South Stream pipeline, or Turk Stream pipeline, which Russia has running under the Black Sea via Turkey into Bulgaria and Eastern Europe. This has been suspended right now. And this is according to Radio Free Europe. So the claim is that the Netherlands have revoked the license of the Turk Stream operator. This is a Dutch-based or listed company. So this is international concern, obviously, with maritime rules and things like that. A lot of international agreements have gone into laying down this pipeline system, the Turk Stream and South Stream systems that go into Europe. So, and again, the suspension of all contracts related to technical support of the gas pipeline, including design, manufacture, assembly, testing, repair, and maintenance, and training, are all canceled as of yesterday. So, albeit this is a state-run propaganda outlet for Washington, Radio Free Europe, but these are the claims that they're making. So we'll take it on face value for the moment and wait for further confirmation on the status of this. But that's being reported. I might add that those pipelines are very much going to be regarded as a military target going forward. Okay, so think about all of the different undersea pipelines and also overground pipelines. I think this is a very dangerous area that we're kind of wading into here. If everyone's going to turn a blind eye to what happened with the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipeline, certainly the President of the United States, the British leadership, NATO leaders are pretty much turning a blind eye to what happened. Is that a tacit admission of guilt or indifference? But if it's indifference, you're basically opening the door for more of these same type of incidents, attacks in other pipelines, especially ones relating or coming from Russia. So, and again, the timing of this is a coincidence or not, but the day of the Nord Stream incident, you may have reported on this previously, I'm not sure, but a new pipeline was announced and launched that same day from between Norway and Poland, sending natural gas to Poland, which would make Poland a major energy hub now for Europe. Is that a coincidence? And it actually crisscrosses with the Nord Stream. It crisscrosses the Nord Stream pathway and very close to, in fact, where the explosions have allegedly taken place. So is that a coincidence? You be the judge. I don't have a map on screen, but you can go look up in this particular article or any of these articles on this new pipeline by Euronews. It does crisscross the Nord Stream route very close to Donholm Island, the Danish island territory. In fact, right exactly next to it. So that's just another thing to look at and maybe ask some serious questions about that operation could have been carried out clandestine in a clandestine way at that time. So is this another conspiracy theory? You can be the judge. I don't know, Mike, did you cover the Poland-Norway pipeline?
No, we didn't.
Because those are two countries that would be beneficiaries. Norway is very active in NATO with NATO drills, joint drills in recent years. So they've been more hawkish on Russia. So they're an absolute competitor and beneficiary. So Poland and Norway would be in the frame. I don't know, Mike, what your opinion is, but I think if the U.S. would avoid doing it directly so that in the future, if it ever did come out, they would have some level of deniability, but they would provide support for such an operation, logistical support, cover, and so forth. But it would also be in the U.S. interest not to actually do the sabotage directly in order to keep their hands clean, so to speak. But I don't know what your opinion on this is.
Well, I mean, it's not massively deep water, but I'm not really clear who else, other than a state actor that could have pulled off a gag like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't even take large submarines. It could be done with very small remote control or unmanned aqua vehicles or things like that.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of different possibilities in shape charges and limpet mines, not difficult to carry out or even place well in advance and then wait for the opportune moment in order to detonate them. So that's also very much a possibility as well. Russia is launched a sub, I believe, to they're wanting to go inspect the damage and to find out more about it, to see if they can get some evidence, in fact, as to what type of explosion there was or what was used, what sort of materials were used in order to create the damage. So that's also underway as well. No doubt the international community is going to ignore any findings that are presented by
by
Russia, and it'll
Russia.
be written
Yeah.
off as just the mad ravings of Vladimir Putin. But here's the big takeaway, and you don't have to go much further than Associated Press. They're using this event to basically throw doubt on natural gas as a source of energy. The methane leak now, as a result of this sabotage, is evidence, according to climate scientists, that we need to move away from natural gas, full stop. If you can believe that, they're taking advantage of this. Climate scientists have found that methane emissions from oil and gas industry are far more worse than what the companies are reporting, despite claims by firms that they're reducing them. So that's where it's going in terms of the talking points. So it's immediately shifting into the green talking points. So there are advantages to advance the green agenda, the moving off of quote, fossil fuels, and really what is regarded by many as the process of deindustrialization of Europe. And there's a great article here by French journalist Freddie Ponton, and it's called "Chaos by Design: The Roots of EU Energy Crisis and France's Green Deception." And he quotes Emmanuel Macron here: "End of the world or end of the month, we are going to deal with both, and we must deal with both." So he's using sort of biblical rhetoric, Macron. But this article is great because it tracks back to the Project 1980s, which was a child of the Council on Foreign Relations, and Paul Volcker and the Trilateral Commission. And this was basically, it seems like, the exact blueprint for the Great Reset. So before the Great Reset came from the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab is getting credit for this, the actual nuts and bolts and the sort of logistics of this was laid out in the 1980s and 70s by the trilateralists, led by the time of former Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker and other Cyrus Vance and other operatives here that were top trilateralists. So you see the policy being formed in the CFR, put out in public via their publications, and then the trilateralists, which are embedded in key government agencies and appointed positions, they then carry out the policy. They implement the policy. So wherever you see members of the Trilateral Commission, their job, according to this research article by the French journalist Freddie Ponton, is their job is to implement these policies that are
Uh,
moving towards an end goal, which is the disintegration of the Western economy, as it were. And the evidence in here is quite stunning.
and that would include the current leader of the Labour Party, by the way. But let's
That's right.
yes, let's quickly move on because